Some names live on in history not for greatness, but for fear. Today, we visit the final resting places of infamous criminals whose dark legacies still haunt the world. Jesse James, famed frontier outlaw and Confederate guerrilla, was shot dead at 34 on April 3, 1882. Buried at Mount Olivet Cemetery, Kearney, Missouri. Lee Harvey Oswald, accused assassin of JFK, was shot by Jack Ruby on November 24, 1963, at 24. Buried at Shannon Rose Hill Memorial Park, Fort Worth, Texas. Billy the Kid, outlaw gunfighter of the Wild West, was killed at 21 by Sheriff Pat Garrett in 1881. Buried at Old Fort Sumner Cemetery, Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Clyde Barrow, outlaw and folk figure, died May 23, 1934 at 25 in a police ambush with Bonnie Parker. Buried at Western Heights Cemetery, Dallas, Texas. Bonnie Parker, famed partner of Clyde Barrow, died May 23, 1934 at 23 in a police ambush. Buried at Crown Hill Memorial Park, Dallas, Texas. Bumpy Johnson, Harlem crime boss, died of a heart attack in 1968 at 62. Buried at Woodlawn Cemetery, Bronx, New York. Saddam Hussein, Iraqi dictator from 1979-2003, was executed by hanging in 2006 at 69. Buried in Al-Auja near Tikrit, Iraq. John Gotti, the Dapper Don and Gambino boss, died in prison in 2002 at 61 from cancer. Buried at St. John Cemetery, Middle Village, New York. Al Capone, Chicago crime boss, died January 25, 1947 at 48 from a stroke. Buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery, Hillside, Illinois. Kid Curry, bank robber and gunman of the Wild Bunch, died by suicide in 1904 at 36. Buried at Linwood Cemetery, Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Frank the Enforcer Nitti, Al Capone's right-hand man, died by suicide on March 19, 1943 at 59. Buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery, Hillside, Illinois. Emperor Norton I, eccentric San Francisco folk figure, died in 1880 at 61. Buried at Woodlawn Memorial Park Cemetery, Colma, California. Belle Starr, Wild West outlaw later romanticized in legend, was shot dead in 1889 at 40. Buried at Belle Starr Cemetery, Porham, Oklahoma. Blackbeard, infamous English pirate, was killed in battle in 1718 at about 38. Buried near Ocracoke Island, North Carolina. John Wilkes Booth, actor and assassin of Abraham Lincoln, died April 26, 1865 at 26. Buried in the Booth family plot, Greenmount Cemetery, Baltimore. Babyface Nelson, Dillinger's partner and bank robber, was killed in 1934 at 25. Buried at St. Joseph Cemetery, River Grove, Illinois. Lewis Powell, Lincoln assassination conspirator, was hanged in 1865 at 21. Buried at Holmead's Burying Ground, Washington, D.C. Billy Clanton and Frank and Tom McLaury, killed in the 1881 gunfight at the OK Corral, rest together in Boot Hill Graveyard, Tombstone, Arizona. Albert Anastasia, co-founder of Murder, Inc., was shot dead in a barber chair October 25, 1957 at 55. Buried at Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn, New York. Kate Ma Barker, Depression-era gang leader, was killed in a 1935 FBI shootout at 61. Buried at Welch Cemetery, DeQueen, Arkansas. Vito Genovese, Mafia boss, died of a heart attack in 1969 at 71 while in prison. Buried at St. John's Cemetery, Middle Village, New York. Ed Gein, murderer and grave robber whose crimes inspired Psycho, died in 1984 at 77. Buried at Plainfield Cemetery, Plainfield, Wisconsin. Vincent Mad Dog Call, Irish mobster, was gunned down in a Manhattan phone booth in 1932 at 23. Buried at St. Raymond's Cemetery, Bronx, New York. Frank Costello, Mafia boss dubbed Prime Minister of the Underworld, died in 1973 at 82. Buried at St. Michael's Cemetery, Queens, New York. Machine Gun Kelly, gangster and kidnapper, died of a heart attack in 1954 at 59. Buried at Cottondale Cemetery, Wise County, Texas. Bugs Moran, rival of Capone, died of lung cancer in prison in 1957 at 65. Buried at Resurrection Cemetery, Justice, Illinois. Pablo Escobar, Colombian drug lord and Medellin cartel leader, was shot dead in 1993 at 44. Buried at Jardines Monte Sacro Cemetery, Itagüí, Colombia. Clay Allison, eccentric Wild West gunfighter, died in 1887 at 47. Buried at Pecos Cemetery, Pecos, Texas. Jack McCall, killer of Wild Bill Hickok, was executed by hanging in 1877 at 24. Buried in Yankton Cemetery, Yankton, South Dakota. Lizzie Borden, accused of the 1892 axe murders of her father and stepmother, died June 1, 1927 at 66. Buried at Oak Grove Cemetery, Fall River, Massachusetts. Kit Dalton, former Confederate raider and frontier outlaw, died July 3, 1931 at 84. Buried at Elmwood Cemetery, Memphis, Tennessee. Elmer McCurdy, outlaw turned sideshow curiosity, died in a 1911 shootout at 31. Buried at Summit View Cemetery, Guthrie, Oklahoma. Bill Doolin, outlaw leader of the Wild Bunch, was gunned down on August 24, 1896 at 38. Buried at Summit View Cemetery, Guthrie, Oklahoma. Harry Orchard, assassin of ex-Gov. Frank Steunenberg in 1905, died April 13, 1954 at 88. Buried at Morris Hill Cemetery, Boise, Idaho. John Dillinger, Depression-era gangster, died July 22, 1934 at 31 in an FBI ambush. Buried at Crown Hill Cemetery, Indianapolis, Indiana. Dean O'Banion, Irish mobster and North Side gang leader, was gunned down November 10, 1924 at 32. Buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery, Hillside, Illinois. Sam Giancana, Chicago outfit boss, was murdered at home on June 19, 1975 at 67. Buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery, Hillside, Illinois. Earl Jaime Weiss, North Side gang boss and rival of Capone, was shot dead October 11, 1926 at 28. Buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery, Hillside, Illinois. Leon Czolgosz, assassin of President William McKinley, was executed in 1901 at 28. Buried in an unmarked grave at Auburn Prison Cemetery, Auburn, New York. Bob Dalton, leader of the Dalton Gang, was killed in the Coffeyville raid on October 5, 1892 at 23. Buried at Elmwood Cemetery, Coffeyville, Kansas. Pretty Boy Floyd, Depression-era outlaw, was shot dead by FBI agents in 1934 at 30. Buried at Aiken Cemetery, Sallisaw, Oklahoma. Joey Gallo, Brooklyn mobster, was shot dead at a restaurant on April 7, 1972 at 43. Buried at Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn, New York. Henry Judd Gray, executed in 1928 at 43 for the Hall Mills murder case. Buried at Rosedale Cemetery, Montclair, New Jersey. Thomas Three Finger Brown Lucchese, Mafia leader of the Lucchese crime family, died in 1967 at 67. Buried at Calvary Cemetery, Queens, New York. Lucky Luciano, founder of modern organized crime in America, died of a heart attack in 1962 at 64. Buried at St. John's Cemetery, Middle Village, New York. Alfred Packer, Colorado cannibal, died in 1907 at 65. Buried at Littleton Cemetery, Littleton, Colorado, where his grave attracts curious visitors. Sam Bass, train robber, was killed in a gunfight in 1878 at 27. Buried at Round Rock Cemetery, Round Rock, Texas. Jack Ruby, nightclub owner who killed Lee Harvey Oswald live on TV, died of cancer in 1967 at 55. Buried at West Lawn Cemetery, Chicago, Illinois. Johnny Torrio, Capone's mentor and crime boss, died of a heart attack in 1957 at 75. Buried at Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn, New York. Bugsy Siegel, mobster tied to Las Vegas Flamingo Hotel, was shot dead in 1947 at 41. Buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. Arnold Rothstein, gambler linked to the 1919 Black Sox scandal, was shot over debts in 1928 at 46. Buried at Union Field Cemetery, Queens, New York. Dick Turpin, English highwayman, was hanged in York in 1739 at about 33. Buried in St. George's Churchyard, York, United Kingdom. Machine Gun Jack McGurn, tied to the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, was shot dead in 1936 at 33. Buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery, Hillside, Illinois. Frank Scullis, Gambino underboss, was assassinated in 1957 at 65. Buried at St. John's Cemetery, Middle Village, New York. H. Holmes, America's first known serial killer, was hanged in 1896 at 34. Buried at Holy Cross Cemetery, Yeadon, Pennsylvania.